Hello and welcome to this demonstration on how to use ArcCam Express and a CNC machine to carve a clock face to your own design. Now the first thing you're going to want to do is work out the dimensions that you want your clock face to be and then open up a new model with those dimensions. Now I'm going to use dimensions of 300, 310. Once that's opened up, you're going to want to start creating vectors to create boundaries for your clock face. Now for my clock face, I'm going to draw a circle which is snapped to the centre. And then I'm actually going to modify this to say that I want it to have a radius of 140 mils. Then I'm going to draw a square around the outside of the model, like so. Once this is done, I'm going to offset this vector 10 millimeters inwards, like so. And I'm also going to offset the circle outwards by 5 millimeters. This is going to help me make the pattern that I want in my clock. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this trim tool and just get rid of all the bits that I don't want, like so. Like that. The next thing I'm going to do is create the numbers to go on the clock and then put them on the clock in the right position. Now to do this, I'm just going to draw a circle starting from the origin or the center of the model and just drag it out to where I want the numbers to be, like so. And then I'm going to use the create vector text to actually create the text. Now I'm going to use Roman numerals of size 20 millimeters to actually do this, and I'm just going to write them out like so. Once this has been done, just click done and then drag these across. Now I'm going to want each of these numbers to be equally spaced and actually be in the position where they want to be. So I'm just going to create a vector starting from the origin and then just snap it to the horizontal until it crosses the line of where my numbers are going to be. Now I'm just going to use the block copy and rotate to just rotate and copy this around the center of the circle 12 times. So when I click apply, and each one of these lines will cross the circle where each of the numbers need to be. So I can just get rid of this, select the numbers, select the vector that I want to paste them onto, and then just use the text on a curve tool. And as you'll see, it snaps the numbers onto the curve. I'm just going to drag these around so that the number 1 is in the right position, like so. And then I'm just going to select the single words and then drag each one individually until they're in the right position. Once this is done, you can just select OK, and now we have our numbers in the right position. So we can just delete all these vectors here. We can also delete this vector, like so. And now we have the numbers in the right position. So now we're going to want to start decorating our clock. Now I'm actually going to use a floral design on my clock. And I'm going to do this one of two ways. First I'm going to create the vectors myself, and then I'm actually going to use some bitmaps to create the vectors for me. Now what I'm going to do is just save this file. I'm just going to save this file as the clock face. And then I'm just going to open a new model, like so. And now I'm going to create the vectors for the design. Now the first thing I'm going to do is draw a flower, and I'm just going to do this using a polyline. And as you can see, just using the polyline to sketch the outline of a petal. Now I'm also going to draw the inside bit of the petal, like so. And then selecting both of these, I'm going to use the tool, I'm going to use the subtract vectors tool, like so, to give me the shape of a petal. Then I can use the block, copy and rotate. Rotate the copy. I'm just going to select the center of rotation as there. I want 5 of these petals to my flower. And as you can see, now I have a flower that I can use on my design. Now what I'm going to need to do is actually export these vectors so I can use them in the design. So the next thing I'm going to do is create a vector for the design using a bitmap. So what I'm going to do is go on File, close this model. I'm going to open a new model, and then I'm just going to open the picture that I want to convert. I'm just going to select OK. So once this is opened up, we're going to reduce the amount of colours that are in this bitmap to help ArtCam create vectors from these colours. So what we're going to do, just going to select the reduce the colours, bring this all the way down to 2, so it's just a black and white photo. Going to click OK, and now we can use the bitmap to vector tool. Make sure we have black selected as our primary colour, and this will now create a vector around all the black. And as you can see, this has now created a vector where all the black was. So what we can do is just export these vectors, making sure that they're highlighted, and then save this as flower vine, and then we will be able to bring them into our clock design. So we can now close this model and then open up the Clockface design, like so. And once we've opened up this Clockface design, we can actually import the vectors that we exported before and then use them to help create the design. Now I actually created a few more vectors. I'm just going to import them now. So I can import flower, make sure it comes into where it is, and then we can just move this out of the way for now and import the rest of them. Okay, so once I have now got them all imported, I can start to rearrange them how I want on the clock face. So with this one, I'm just going to drag this into this corner piece. I'm just going to have to resize this. So it fits in like so. Now I'm just going to select the vector, and then I can actually just mirror this into the other 4 corners. So I'm just going to select the mirror tool, make sure we copy the original objects. We're going to mirror over the model and then mirror across the model. Now as you can see, it is nicely copied and pasted these into the 4 corners. Now I'm actually going to use this flower here to go in between all of my numbers, just to give a bit more decoration. Now as you can see, the number between 7 and 8 is going to be the smallest one, so I'm just going to have to reduce the size of this so it fits in there, and once it does, I know it'll fit in between all the other letters, like so. like so. And then I can just use the block copy and rotate tool, rotate them around the center of the circle, which is the coordinates of 150 and minus 150 in this model. I'm going to rotate it through 360 degrees, and I'm going to rotate the objects, and it's going to create 12 objects. So just click and apply. Now as you can see, each of the flowers was not created in the center between each of the numbers, because some of the numbers are bigger and some of them are smaller. So I'm just going to edit these individually and just drag them into the center of the gap between each of the numbers. Now I'm happy with how these are orientated around the clock face. Now I'm actually going to create a circular vector to create an inner boundary between the center and the numbers, like so. Now this will mean that the numbers will actually be elevated slightly, which is what I want in my design. Now to fill the gap between the numbers and the center, I'm just going to use this flower vine here. I'm just going to drag it there, and then I'm going to rotate this 12 times around the center. And as you can see, this has now been replicated for each of the numbers. Now for the design in the center, I'm actually going to use this flower here. Just drag it in like so. I'm just going to resize this slightly to make it fill the inside, like this. Now I'm actually going to have to create a hole in the center in order for the mechanism to fit through. So I'm just going to create a circle, have the center of the circle at 150, minus 150, which is the center of the model. I'm going to have a radius of 2.5 millimeters, like so. And that is now being created in the center, like so. Now I want to create the edge of the clock. And to do this, I'm just going to select each of these vectors here, and then just use the offset outside. Now I'm going to use an offset of 7 millimeters. When I offset it outwards, I'm going to make sure this is radiused like so. And as you can see, this nice boundary has been created. This is what the shape of the clock is going to be. So now we have the design of the clock, we can start to create the toolpaths in order for us to carve this out using a CNC machine. The toolpaths used in this demonstration are just an example. You may have to change these yourself depending on what tools you have and what is suitable for your design. Now the first thing we'll do is create a rectangular vector around the outside of the model to help us define these toolpaths. So just snapping these to the corners and then clicking create. So the first toolpaths I'm going to create are just going to create the different levels that we want inside the clock. So creating the first one, I'm just going to select the outer boundary and then these vectors, because this defines the area that I want to actually reduce the height of the clock. So then I'm going to select the 2D area clearance toolpath, add a tool. Now for this I'm going to need quite a small tool, as some of this area is quite narrow. So I'm actually going to use a 3mm end mill for this. So I've selected this. Now I have the start depth of 0, but I want to finish with this 3mm below the top. So I'm going to select a finish depth of 3, scroll down, check my material is the 10mm which I specified. I'm just going to call this rest area clearance 1, like so. We can close this down, and now you can see that it has managed to reach all the areas we want it to. We can then hide this toolpath on the left by just clicking these light bulbs, like so. So the next toolpath I'm going to create is to actually reduce the height of this center piece. So I'm just going to click on that vector, select the Create Area Clearance toolpath, make sure it's in the selected areas, add a tool, and for this we can use a slightly larger tool. I'm going to use a 6mm end mill. And for this I want a finish depth of 2mm. And just calculate now. Now on our project tree on the left, we can just open this and we can see our two different toolpaths here. Again, we can hide this one by selecting on the 2D bulb and hiding it like so. Now the next toolpath I'm going to create is a V-bit carving on the numbers. So I'm just going to select the numbers, these should all be grouped together, select the V-bit carving toolpath, make sure it's in the selected vectors. I'm going to select a small V-bit 6mm 90° carving tool because these numbers are quite small and intricate. I'm just going to calculate this now. Now we can see what this looks like so far by just switching to the 3D view, clicking on the simulation. This is what it looks like so far. So you can actually switch back to the 2D view and continue with our toolpaths. Now I'm actually going to create one toolpath for all the flower detail on the top level. So I'm just going to select all the flowers, then I'm going to create a V-bit carving toolpath, again with a start depth of 0 because I want this to start from the top. Using the small V-bit tool again, and just calculating this. We can then close this down. Next thing we can do is carve out the inner design. So we're going to select this, and again using the V-bit carving, but this time we need a start depth of 2mm because this is the depth that we drill down to on that level. Now for this we do not want a minimum depth because we want the full design of the flowers and it should not be that deep for it to cause a problem. So again, selecting the same tool and calculating this. So the next toolpath I'm going to run is to cut out the hole where the mechanism will fit through. So if you select the vector, select the area clearance. Now we're going to need quite a small tool to actually fit into this hole because it's quite a small hole. So I'm actually going to use a 1.5mm end mill. I want the finished depth to be 10mm because I want it to go the whole way through the wood. And then I'm just going to calculate this. Now finally I'm going to create a toolpath around the outer border of the clock to actually cut it out. So I'm going to select the outer vector and then select Create Profile Toolpath. Now I want the toolpath to go around the outside because I don't want it to cut into where the clock is. I want the finished depth to be 10mm because I want it to cut it out. Select a profiling tool of an end mill of 5mm. I'm just going to calculate this. Now we can run the simulation of all these toolpaths together to see what it would look like if we cut this out using the CNC machine. So I'm just going to delete the old simulation, select the simulation, and it will run all of our toolpaths. Now as you will see, there's some waste material that has been left behind by the toolpaths. To get rid of this, we can just right click on the simulation and delete the waste material, and then just click on the bits of material we don't want. Once you've done this, you can close down Auto Delete Waste Material. Now I've got my simulated material to be made out of oak, and you can change this by just clicking on the simulation, going down to the material and choosing a different material. So if this was made out of mahogany with a vertical stripe, you can see it would look like this. I'm just going to switch this back to light oak with a horizontal stripe so you can see the detail better. And this is what it would look like if we machined it out of a CNC.